Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to discuss the morphology of permanent maxillary first premolar. It is the fourth tooth from the midline. It shares its mesial contact with the maxillary canine and its distal contact with the maxillary second premolar. It replaces the deciduous maxillary first molar, hence it is a succedaneous tooth. The universal numbering system is the right tooth is #5 and left is #12. The Palmar notation system is for right, this is right and this is left. The FTI system is for right, it is 1 right quadrant, tooth number 4, and left is 2 is the quadrant, left quadrant, and 4 is the tooth number 24. It is the Federation Dentaire International number. The general form and function from the occlusal aspect, the outline is hexagonal or six-sided. From the proximal aspects, it is trapezoidal, and from the facial aspect or buccal aspect, it is pentagonal. The basic function of this tooth in mastication is grinding. It erupts at about 10 to 11 years and completes its root by 12 to 13 years. The buccal aspect is pentagonal in shape. When you compare it with anterior teeth, its occlusocervical dimension, the dimension from occlusocervical is less than that of any anterior teeth. You can see in this canine the occlusocervical dimension is larger than this premolar. This is the mesial outline. The mesial outline is shallowly concave from the contact area to the cervical line. The mesial margin joins the mesio-occlusal slope to create an obtuse mesio-occlusal angle. The crest of curvature or height of contour is at the contact area near the junction of occlusal and middle third. This is the distal margin. It is shorter than this mesial margin, which is longer. The distal margin is usually straight as the cervical concavity is not deep. The crest of curvature is located at the contact area near the junction of occlusal and middle third, but slightly cervical located than that of the mesial surface. The occlusal outline has a pronounced buccal cusp tip. The cusp tip, this divides the occlusal outline into two unequal portions. Mesio-occlusal slope is longer and straighter, while the disto-occlusal slope is curved and shorter. The cuff tip is opposite towards the distal. You can see this cuff tips are opposite towards the distal. The developmental depressions here may pass over this occlusal slopes and create a notch here. The cemento-enamel junction or cervical line is evenly curved towards the root apex. The depth of curvature is normally less than that found in the anterior teeth. Here you can see in canine the depth of curvature is more, whereas in premolar the depth of curvature is less as compared to the anterior teeth. There is a prominent buccal ridge in the middle. It extends about halfway along the buccal surface from cusp tip toward the cervical line and then disappears. It is result of greater development of the middle buccal lobe. On either side of the buccal ridge there are developmental depressions. This is the nasiobuccal developmental depression and this is the distobuccal developmental depression. These correspond to the three buccal lobes: the mesiobuccal lobe, middle buccal lobe, and distobuccal lobe. Imbrication lines are present on the cervical third of the buccal surface. The height of contour of the buccal surface is in the cervical third. You can see the lingual surface, lingual aspect. This is the lingual aspect. It is smoothly convex in all direction. There is no clearly defined lingual ridge. This from the crown tapers the medial and distal surface of the buccal surface tapers towards the lingual. So the lingual surface is smaller mesiodistally than the buccal surface, or narrower mesiodistally than the buccal surface. The lingual cusp is 1 mm shorter than the buccal cusp. So you can see from here the buccal cusp tip is visible as it is 1 mm shorter. These two buccal cusp tips do not fall on the same line, since the lingual cusp tip is offset towards the mesial, whereas the buccal cusp tip is offset towards the distal, as the uh, mesial-occlusal slope on the buccal surface is longer, so it causes the buccal cusp tip to offset distally. And here the on the lingual surface, the disto-occlusal slope is longer, so it causes the lingual cusp tip to offset mesially. The mesial and distal outlines of the lingual surface are somewhat convex and shorter than the outlines of the buccal surface. However, the mesial outline may be concave here if the mesial concavity is deeper. This is the occlusal outline. The lingual cusp tip is not as sharply pointed as this buccal cusp tip. It is offset towards the mesial. You can see here it is offsetting towards the mesial. The cusp tip is offset towards the mesial. The medial occlusal slope is shorter than the distal occlusal slope, which is longer. Cervical line is curved symmetrically towards the root apex. There are no developmental depressions, no pits, no grooves on this lingual surface. The lingual height of contour is in the middle third. Coming to the mesial aspect, the mesial aspect is trapezoidal in shape. The longer side of the trapezoid is at the cervical and shorter at the occlusal. Buccal margin is inly convex and the height of contour is in the cervical third. The lingual outline forms an even arc with the height of contour in the middle third. The occlusal outline is irregularly concave. Majority of it is made up by the mesial marginal ridge. There is a prominent mesial marginal groove, this groove, which indents the occlusal margin almost two-thirds of the way from buccal to lingual outline. Two-thirds of the way from the buccal to lingual outline. The cervical line is evenly curved towards the occlusal. The cervical line is irregularly curved towards the occlusal due to the mesial concavity. It may be irregularly curving towards the occlusal. You can see here there is an obvious differences between the heights of the buccal cusp and lingual cusp. This lingual cusp is shorter and this buccal cusp is longer. The unique feature of the mesial surface is that here there is a concavity on the mesial surface called the mesial concavity. Sometimes this concavity may extend up to the mesio-occlusal point angle area. The mesial height of contour is associated with the contact area at the junction of occlusal and middle third, and it is offset towards the buccal, and it is roughly circular in shape. The distal aspect is also trapezoidal in shape. It is similar to the mesial surface except it is shorter occlusal cervically, and the buccal outline is convex throughout its length with the crest of curvature or height of contour in the cervical third. The lingual outline also forms an even arc with the height of contour in the middle third. The occlusal margin is similar to the mesial surface, except it is the mesial distal margin is more cervical located, so the occlusal portion can be seen from this aspect. There is no distal marginal groove. The cervical line curvature is less than on the mesial, where it is more curving towards the occlusal. The distal contact area you can see here is larger than the mesial contact area. Here it was circular, here it is wide and buccolingual longer than occlusal cervically. The distal surface is generally convex in all directions and there is no distal concavity here. Coming to the occlusal aspect, the occlusal aspect is hexagonal or six-sided figure. It is wider buccolingually than mesiodistally. So this dimension is more than this dimension. There is a prominent buccal ridge, which is a primary contributor to the convex buccal surface or buccal outline. When the buccal developmental depressions are deep, they create a notch on the occlusal outline on the mesio-occlusal slope and the disto-occlusal slope. The lingual margin is evenly convex, almost in a semicircle. These are the mesial and distal margins. These are relatively straight margins and they converge towards the lingual. Thus, the lingual portion is narrower than this buccal portion, which is wider, and this is narrower due to convergence of the marginal ridges towards the lingual. When mesial margin groove is prominent, it may create a dip in the mesial outline. Here it is creating a dip in the mesial outline. The occlusal table is bounded on the mesial and distal by the mesial marginal ridge, the distal marginal ridge, and on the buccal and lingual by the mesial cusp ridge of the buccal cusp, distal cusp ridge of the buccal cusp, mesial cusp ridge of the lingual cusp, and distal cusp ridge of the lingual cusp. The components of the occlusal table are the two cusps. This is the buccal cusp, this is the lingual cusp. The buccal cusp is sharper, longer, and bulkier. The buccal cusp tip is located well towards the buccal and is offset towards the distal due to the longer mesial cusp slope or mesio-occlusal slope. It is wider and higher than the lingual cusp, 1 mm difference in height. There are four cusp ridges. The buccal cusp ridge extending cervically from the buccal cusp tip corresponding to the buccal ridge. The lingual cusp ridge, also called triangular ridge, extending from lingually from the cusp tip towards the central groove. It is synonymous with the buccal triangular ridge, also called buccal portion of the transverse ridge. This is the lingual portion of the transverse ridge. So these two triangular ridges make up the transverse ridge. The mesial cusp ridge extends from mesially from cusp tip to the mesio-bucco-occlusal point angle. The distal cusp ridge extends distally from the cusp tip towards the disto-bucco-occlusal point angle. The buccal cusp has four inclined planes: the mesio-buccal inclined plane, the distobuccal inclined plane, the mesio-lingual inclined plane, and distolingual inclined plane. The mesio-buccal inclined plane and distobuccal inclined plane are non-functional inclined planes. The mesio-lingual inclined planes and distobuccal inclined, distolingual inclined planes are the functional inclined planes because they come in the occlusion. So they are functional inclined planes. Coming to the lingual cusp, the lingual cusp tip is located well towards the lingual and is offset towards the mesial. Here you can appreciate it. It's offset towards the mesial due to the longer disto-occlusal slope. It is generally smaller and rounder than the buccal cusp. It is shortest of all the maxillary premolar cusps. Here also are four cusp ridges and four inclined planes. Here the mesiolingual inclined plane is non-functional. So the three functional inclined planes are the Mesiobuccal inclined plane, distobuccal inclined plane, and distolingual inclined planes. These are the functional. Transverse ridge is formed by the triangular ridge of the buccal cusp and triangular ridge of the lingual cusp. The marginal ridges form the mesial and distal boundaries of the occlusal surface. The mesial marginal ridge is slightly shorter and its continuity is disrupted by the mesial marginal groove near its midpoint. The foci are generally depressed area on the occlusal surface of the posterior teeth. The maxillary teeth exhibit two foci, the mesial triangular fossa and the distal triangular fossa. The medial triangular fossa is roughly triangular in shape. It is bounded by the mesial marginal ridge, the transverse ridge, and mesial cusp ridge of the buccal cusp and mesial cusp ridge of the lingual cusp. The distal triangular fossa is not quite deep as compared to the medial triangular fossa. It is bounded by the distal marginal ridge, the transverse ridge, distal cusp ridge of the buccal cusp, distal cusp ridge of the lingual cusp. There are two pits, the mesial pit and the distal pit. The mesial pit is located in the mesial triangular fossa just inside the mesial marginal ridge. It is point of union of four primary grooves, the mesiobuccal triangular groove, the mesial lingual triangular groove, the central groove which extends mesiodistally, and the mesial marginal groove. The distal pit is point of union of three grooves, distobuccal triangular groove, distolingual triangular groove, and the central groove. There is no distal marginal groove. So this was all about the maxillary first premolar crown morphology.